You get a shiver in the dark, it's raining in the park, but meanwhile, south of the river, you stop and hold everything.
Hey guys, welcome to another fabulous episode of the Boston Chris podcast. I am your host, Boston Chris, and guys, we have a huge treat for y'all this week on the show. My buddy, Craig Wallace, has joined us on the show this week, and unlike a lot of our recent episodes where we are chatting with fabulous people of all walks of entertainment in video chat format, today, we are live at the Big Sandy Music Hall in Big Sandy, Texas, with our partners, the Kirbys and Bobby Cole, out there at the Big Sandy Music Hall. And we got to chat with Craig about so much. If you're not familiar with Craig, he is just a pearl of a human being and an absolute legend of a musician from right here in the piney woods of East Texas. Grew up in Garland, Texas, and really kind of sowed his oats in South Dallas, in the South Dallas music scene, with folks like Freddie King and or Freddie King Jr. and a bunch of other amazing folks. 1987, Craig Wallace was inducted as a Texas Tornado in Buddy Magazine. Again, in that illustrious list, you have people like Stevie Ray Vaughan and Bugs Henderson and Jimmy Vaughan and Jimmy Wallace, and Craig Wallace is on that list. I know they say that it represents the greatest players in the history of Texas, perhaps the world, and we have one of them right here on the show today. We talked to Craig about so much about his life, his career, his music, what makes him tick, and I really think you guys are going to enjoy this episode. So without any further ado, let's get right into it.
All right. Hey, this is Jerry Phillips, and thank you for tuning into the Boston Chris Show.
If you are from the DFW area or East Texas, you know all about my guest this week. But for those of you who may be beyond the state of Texas, you guys are in for a huge treat. We have Craig Wallace with us, Texas Tornado. How you been, Craig?
Good. It's good to be here.
I really appreciate you taking the time to be here on the show today.
Anytime.
So he's already looked at me longer than he does his normal audiences. So I'm a little bit...
What? I don't look at the audience.
That's what I'm saying, which means we've already got like 30 seconds of you looking at me.
I'm trying to be here for the moment as opposed to in my large loom of my mind.
Right. And I want to talk to you about your strategy for not looking at audiences. Not quite yet. It's going to be a little later. First, we're going to introduce a song from your new record that we're going to get into in depth in a minute as well. This is called John Wayne's in Love. This is an instrumental track that you've put together for us today. Tell us about the song a little bit.
Well, what happened was when I came into the studio, Dave Parks, I thought Dave Parks was going, Craig, you're out of your mind. You know, these parts don't work together. Mm-hmm. Instead, they go, I like it. But overall, the premise, the intro of the part is because I noticed in every John Wayne and Western, they have to have the 3 minutes with a woman, usually talking over a horse, right? And that's the love interest, right? But every time they show one in all these movies, there's an elderly Hispanic man playing classical guitar, just random stuff, just like
sitting on the porch. Yep.
You know what I mean? He's not playing a melody.
Right.
He's just playing random stuff. And he's always there. And it's like, that's the whole soundtrack of all the, if you watch them enough, you'll
True.
see.
That's true.
And then the second part was John Wayne talks to the girl. Next thing you know, he jumps on a horse and they gallop away to do whatever they're going to do. And usually chase villains or Indians or whatever he's going to chase.
It's such a visual song for a song with no lyrics.
Right.
Yeah.
And at the end, when I go into the last section, that's the Indians and the villains chasing them back. So that's why, look at it. I added that last section. I don't know why, but I added it. For all I know, John Wayne could be in heaven by the time that part comes around, or everybody else is in heaven. Depends on John Wayne,
So it's just all inspired by a film.
Just any film, any Western, that there's John Wayne, or I don't care who it is, whatever Western star it is, and they're talking to the love interest. They don't choose any other kind of music other than that.
Yeah.
They don't have somebody screaming down in the valley or any of that stuff. They just, matter of fact, the only music you really see in those things is in the bar, and during that particular thing.
The music is present sometimes too. You just don't always see the player too. Like, it's funny. I just watched Horizons, American Saga, which is by Kevin Costner. It's on Max, and we're not sponsored, so. But yeah, it's the same concept, just the same thing. And this is a 21st century Western, so it hasn't evolved too far from the John Wayne era. And we're so excited to share this live performance of John Wayne's in Love by the one and only Craig Wallace, only here on the Boston Chris podcast. Y'all check it out. So the thing I love about this record is it's such a ethereal journey for me. Normal music for me is so present on your senses. And for this, your record is almost the antithesis to that. Like, it's so calming and meditative. Like, I do yoga to it all the time. And yes, I do yoga. No jokes, no judgment.
Okay.
But yeah, I love it for that reason.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
I can't wait to really talk about that. But we're going to break the ice a little bit. As you guys know, if you watch the show, what's your favorite drinks, Craig? Everybody wants to know, what are your favorite drinks?
Coffee.
Coffee.
That's it.
Yeah.
Now, I don't drink.
Yeah.
People don't realize that about me, but I never partake.
Yeah? Always sober?
Never any other way.
Wow.
And believe me, I spent my life looking at those guys on the bar stool going, I'm going to get off of this bar stool as soon as I can figure it out, Craig. You know, but no, I never did indulge.
Yeah.
I just, everybody thinks I did. I remember Heather was telling me one time we were playing Love and War in Lindale, and they would come up to her and go, well, we know he smokes a lot of pot, but what other drugs does he do? And Heather's just, because I go off to myself, I stay by myself. I am just that way. I've always done that, you know. And I've been on the road where Lord, when it came to drugs, it was around all the time.
Yeah.
Everything was around all the time. And I
Ever
was
present.
naive about it.
Yeah. Well, always have to ask that as part of my theme song. So.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I picked up the theme song from a band in Cambridge, Massachusetts.
Mm-hmm.
They're called Adios Fatso.
Okay.
And one of the lines is, we're going to find out what they're drinking. I asked the guy, I said, could you go in and change that to thinking?
Right.
And he said, well, we could do that, but man, it'd be so much work. I was like, you know what? I can just ask that question every episode and make the theme song make sense. So yeah, there you go.
Well,
so now we ask them what they're drinking.
Well, to be quite honest, coffee has been it for a long time.
Yeah, I just recently got into coffee. 47 years old. I started drinking coffee at 46.
Really?
Yeah. Interesting, right?
My grandfather got me hooked when I was 13. We went to Louisiana, Port Arthur, and I had my first 6-course meal.
Yeah.
And then he introduced
The 4 courses were coffee?
No, but the dessert came with coffee.
Okay.
And back then, I don't know if you've ever had Louisiana coffee, but it's equivalent to mud. And my grandfather said, you got to put cream and sugar in it.
Yeah.
So I've always drank it with cream and sugar.
Yeah, me too.
I
don't put sugar in it. I put creamer in it. And boy, I'll tell you what, I'll film something for the internet. And if I happen to show my coffee, I get all kinds of flack because it's not black coffee.
Really?
Yeah, apparently your manhood is measured by how much creamer you put in your coffee. I didn't know that.
Well, then I must be a rather large man.
Yeah, me too. Me too.
Yeah.
Coffee, who knew? So you grew up in Dallas, or born in Dallas, and grew up in Garland, is that right? So what was it like as a young Craig?
Not very good.
No? I've heard that. Do you want to talk about it, or?
No, I'm open to any question you have.
So what was it like? I know it was a tough upbringing. Didn't really want to be home very much, right?
No, I wasn't home. As soon as I could get out, I was out. I was out by the time I was 17. But to be quite honest, as it turned out later, I always sensed something wasn't right.
Mm-hmm.
But the main thing, I worked. I worked a lot as a kid. Like in high school, I worked 40 hours a week at TGI Fridays and other places. I even spent my 16th year living in Shreveport by myself.
Wow.
When the phone calls were a nickel and gas was 24 cents a gallon.
Is that when the phone numbers were only 5 numbers?
Yes.
Yeah.
And, I grew up with the concept of, it's so funny, whenever I used to do long distance call by muddy water, You know, it's like nobody knows what a long distance call is anymore
No.
because everything is a long distance call, but nobody calls it that.
And you try to explain a payphone to somebody nowadays, forget it.
Or a party line.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, and everything used to be like BR85364.
Yeah.
You know, they use numbers.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, I was a typical kid. I sucked my thumb all the way until the end of my 6th grade.
Mm.
And I still played sports. So I'm out there, somewhere out there, I'm playing middle linebacker, sucking my thumb the whole time of the game, you know. But I guess I didn't do my schoolwork in the 4th grade, but I read every book in the library.
Were you an only child?
No, I have a sister.
Okay.
She came around about a year and a half after me, but my mother had me when she was 15.
Yeah.
So they were just kids raising kids, you know. And let's just put it this way. I couldn't wait to get away.
Yeah.
And then the reason that I never indulged in anything is maybe because I never wanted anybody to put me in a box again.
Yeah.
I'm not going to the box. I remember in high school, guys would, when I was in high school, pot was a felony, just a seed, you know, and these guys would get in the car, and I'd get in the car. I didn't know what was going on, and they'd pull out a lid, and they'd roll a couple joints, and then they get in the car and start driving, and I was let off a lot of places where I go, I need to get out of here. Let me out. And they go, why? And I go, well, first of all, you don't need to bring the whole lid. You can roll a couple joints. But now you're getting in the car and you're driving, looking for the police.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I don't need that.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, the reason I asked if you were an only child is because I was growing up.
Really?
Yeah, and it was very similar to me. What you're describing is, you know, my parents were, I'm sorry, Mom, but alcoholics. Their parents were alcoholics. So it was just natural for me to be an alcoholic. And I was like, no, I absolutely refuse that. So I'm not sober. I will drink a beer every so often, but I'll buy a 6-pack and they'll sit in there for a year and a half to where I have to check the expiration dates, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it was completely in spite of my family why I didn't go down those roads.
Well, I just never. There were alcoholics in the family, not my mother or my dad,
Mm-hmm.
but I did see what alcohol did to a lot of people.
Yeah, it's essentially, the way I look at it is the way you are raised. You have one of two choices. You can either fall in line and do the same things that the people who are raising you
Mm-hmm.
do, whether it's alcohol or drugs or whatever bad behavior or good behavior they have.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to pick that up. You can either choose to fall in line or you rebel against that and you want something better. And I just always wanted something better. So.
Well, I did have a saving grace. My grandfather, who was part Cherokee, he was in my life until 14.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt like anything I wanted to do with my life, he was going to be there to help me get it.
Mm-hmm.
So I felt totally cool.
Yeah.
But when he died, when I turned 14, basically my parents, I wanted a guitar at 8. They gave me a guitar that as a professional, I couldn't even keep in tune. And the hole was just too damn big. So I filled up the hole with music. But I wasn't allowed to play in the house. I wasn't allowed to play.
Would you say music was your escape then?
No, there was a hole of pain from loss.
Right.
And it's just a world, you know. I mean, the best thing that happens to a guitar player, in my opinion, is to be played. You know, you can play and 2 hours have gone by and it felt like a couple minutes.
Right.
But I always had, it turns out, later I found out I was reading Guitar Player magazine and going, oh man, I'm screwed. I don't have any parents that are musicians.
Right.
And then I found out at age 27 that my real biological father was a jazz musician.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you know, I went, I got a chance.
Right.
You know.
You mentioned your grandfather passing away when you were 14, and he was kind of instrumental in you picking up
Everything.
the guitar again. And he's a major
He's the
reason
only
why
reason.
you are sitting on the stage, right?
Yeah, he's the reason.
Yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't, all the other things that people, I remember when my oldest son, who's 41, turned 16, and he picked up the guitar. And I told him, and I don't want to get in trouble with other musicians, but I said, why do you think most of the guys that I know started playing guitar? And he would say, for fame. And I go, you know. And he kept on saying stuff like for money and stuff like that. And then finally he came up with it. He goes, girls. And I go, yep. They all wanted to meet girls.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it started out like that, you know.
For you, it was a way to soothe the pain, though, wasn't it?
To fill the hole, yeah, it was definitely soothe the pain. It still does, you know. I still don't understand how it all works. You think that I've been playing this for 54 years, you think I'd have a clue, but the only thing I know about guitar is I know nothing, man. It's like the veil of the dance of veils, you know.
It seems to me, as an outsider looking in and learning about you, it seems to me like music was your alcohol. It was your go.
Oh, yeah. I'm addicted to music.
Absolutely. Yeah. So when you're younger and you're trying to avoid home, what are the things you're trying to avoid?
It was just manipulation, betrayal.
The reason why I ask that, Craig, is because when you grow up in a dark environment, it's hard to find joy in that situation, and a lot of us find joy in the arts, right? So I'm curious, as a youngster growing up in a dark environment like that, how did you find music? Like, how did that enter that darkness for you?
Well, my grandfather used to hint around about it, because what happened was my biological father was going to marry my mother. He was 2 years older, and she was in high school.
Mm-hmm.
And they made a plan to get married. He would go 2 years in the Navy. And when they found out pregnant, they tried to do that epoxy wedding. He was on a battleship.
Yeah.
And she broke down at the marriage ceremony at the preacher's house and said it's not his kid.
Wow.
She just nipped it in the bud. And you know, I didn't truly get the DNA test until I was 55 years old.
55, yeah. I can't wait to talk about that too.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, because that's full circle, right? When we talk about that a little bit later, a lot of these interviews I say over time, if people have watched, a lot of these are very circular. Where you start and where you finish are very similar places. And it's very interesting how that journey can kind of weave and meander through time, but you almost always end up back where you started somehow. Now, at 17 years old, we're talking 3 years since your grandfather passed away. You started playing in the South Dallas scene.
Mm-hmm.
What's it like in Dallas at that time?
Let's put it this way. The first gig that I did at House at Jockville with the Freddie King Jr., all the guys from Freddie King's band stayed together.
Yeah.
Deacon Jones, Harold Walker, and Fred Jr. was playing upside down bass.
Yeah.
And we had Freddie King's protege, Cookie McGee. She was probably all of 18 by then. I was only a couple years older than her, maybe, because in 76 I would have been 20.
Yeah.
And Fred died in 76. And man, I played a lot of places and every weekend, and it was just, things happen in black clubs that don't happen in white clubs.
Of course.
And it's the one thing about, God, there's so many stories I could tell you, but I remember the first time I played South Dallas, I was walking in with my guitar and amp, and some brothers stopped me and said, "Where are you going, Homeboy?" Back when Homeboy was the biggest in soul.
Yep.
And I said, "I'm going in there and I'm playing." And they said, "No, you're not. You're going to turn around and go." And I go, "No, I'm playing." And they said, "If you don't get back in your car, we're going to kick your ass."
Yeah.
I said, "Really? You're going to kick my ass?" And they said, "Yeah." So I go, "Okay, I'll tell you what. I'm going to lay down and let you kick my ass. But before I lay down, I want to know why you're kicking my ass." About that time, Freddie King Jr. shows up, who is every bit as big as his father.
Yeah.
Looks just like his father. And usually wearing a Cheap Trick t-shirt. Cheap Trick.
That's amazing.
And he would go, "What's going on?" And they go, "Oh, we're just telling this guy," and he goes, "Not you, man. I'm talking about my boy here," and I made it a point after that to go over to Mr. King's house and, after he passed, and ride with Fred Jr. all the time. Or if I drove him, I made sure to pick him up, and it worked out real well.
Sounds like a lot of education.
Oh, God, you wouldn't believe it, man. I'll tell you the most hilarious story about that you don't, when I say it's like nothing you've ever seen.
Yeah.
Okay, just imagine this. It's about the third set. Deacon Jones always told jokes. He was on the organ. He was the guy that always said, "Are you ready for Fred? Are you ready for Fred?" And so he'd be telling jokes. And one night he was saying, "If you're going to get married, make sure you marry an ugly woman so everybody be happy." Stuff like that.
Yeah.
And about that time you heard this voice. The dance floor was totally, nobody was on it at the time. And basically this woman out of the crowd said, "Why don't you shut up and play music?" And then her and Deacon started getting it on, talking. I think Deacon said something like, "Woman didn't even pay a cover charge and thinks she's in charge," stuff like that. And then she would just say stuff I can't repeat. But anyway, what happened was they decided to have a dance off. So next thing you know, the woman comes out and she looks just like the mother on Good Times.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
Deacon says, "Start Shaft." So we started playing Shaft. Everything is cool. They get down there and they start dancing. And next thing you know, they're doing sort of getting closer and closer to each other, dance-offing, moving up and down. Next thing you know, Deacon takes his shirt off. Next thing you know, this woman that looks just like Mrs. Good Times, she takes her out and she's got a Playtex girdle on. And then they dance and they start acting like they're doing the doggy and all this stuff. And then he takes off his pants and she takes off her, and she's further in the girdle. And they're getting it on, and we're just sitting there playing Shaft for 15 minutes while they did it. You don't see that.
Oh my gosh.
I remember every time there was with one club I played, and the cool thing is Fred Jr. always brought me one of his father's guitars. But when the way I got the gig is I came to sit in one night, and after I sat in, the second set came up, and Fred said, Where are you? Get up here." And that's how I got the gig. I was with them. But they were playing through Freddie King's quad reverb with SROs in it, which is very heavy speaker. And they were using it for PA. And I said, "Fred, if I bring a PA, can I play through your father's amp?" "Well, yeah, you can." So
Score.
Yeah. Plus, hey, this is the gold top on the cover of Freddie King Sings
Absolutely.
score.
Yeah.
But we mainly played stuff like Disco Lady, Car Wash. We kept them dancing. You know, I Wish, stuff like that.
Yeah.
But every night on the third set, I kept on going, let's play some blues, let's play some blues. So we did Stormy Monday.
Yeah.
Now imagine I've been playing all this funk stuff the whole night so that I could play my blues solo during Stormy Morning. And next thing I know, I start going, you know, like, starting to get into it. Next thing I know, I had my eyes closed like I usually do. And I heard people laughing. I'm like, I haven't even got into the solo. There's nothing to laugh at yet. But
You weren't wearing a girdle, were you?
no, I wasn't a girdle.
Thank goodness.
But the next thing I know is I open up my eyes, right? On stage in front of me is a guy that's about 6'6". And he goes, he had a cigarette in his hand. And he goes, you got a light? So I stopped my solo, pulled out my lighter, lit a cigarette. Every time we played that club, we started Stormy Monday. And every night, I just waited for him. Instead of playing the solo, instead of going, I just waited for him. I sat there with a lighter burning because he came up. So, talk about things that I don't think you don't see
Did
that.
the band have to start paying this guy?
No, he was a regular, but no. And here's the deal about black clubs that maybe people don't know. They always served greasy food. Did you know that?
I didn't.
Yeah. What they decided that they had greasy hamburgers, greasy chicken, greasy stuff. And what they did is they felt they could drink more, but if they ate the greasy food, it would sober them up.
Yeah. That makes
And
sense.
then they just kept drinking more.
That's what I have rice for whenever
Really?
I'm drinking. Yeah, the starch like soaks up the alcohol.
Well,
Rice, bread, French fries, potatoes.
anything.
Yeah. Anything starchy.
And it just sobers you up.
I wouldn't say it sobers you up, but it makes it so you can drink more.
Maybe the product is called denial.
Could be.
Give me some more denial. I can have some more.
Yeah, let me have a double shot of denial.
Right.
Yeah. It's almost November. We might need a couple shots soon.
Well, I don't know what that's. It's typical. I don't know what that's like.
So we're mid 70s now, mid to late 70s when you really started getting kind of immersed into the scene.
I started playing with Alex Moore.
Yeah,
He was born. Go ahead.
That was kind of like fast forward for you now because it wasn't like too long, like early 80s, that you're named the Texas Tornado.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's like hyper speed.
Well, I was in Guitar Player magazine in '83.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like, we're talking, 7 years?
Yeah, I don't.
That had to be insane going from, that
one
education.
situation to the other.
Yeah.
I never really thought about it. I just, I was playing with Fred Jr.'s band, Alex Moore, who was born in 1899 on piano, giving me an education. He'd stop in the middle of playing piano and go, Magic Sam used to play a lick like that, but here's what he played. And then we go back into the tune.
Right.
But, he was always, when I was a kid watching KRA, they had Alex Moore, the little 15-minute spots before the next show. Alex Moore was there talking about horse and buggy days and playing piano. And I was like so enamored. And when I did a session, with Ray Wylie, Hubbard, Bugs Henderson, Nitzinger, all these people. And I played on a cut with Alex.
Wow.
And he didn't even say boo to me. He didn't even look at me when I played dobro on a cut. I was sitting there right there, just minding my own business. And then about 2 weeks later, I get a call from his manager, and he said, Alex is playing Daddy-O's tonight in Fort Worth. And I said, man, that's cool, but I'll wait till he gets a little closer. And the manager goes, you don't understand. Alex says we start at 9 o'clock, and he wonders why you aren't here yet. So he didn't say boo to me, but all of a sudden I'm a stepchild.
But he noticed.
Well, I guess he did.
Yeah, he must have. He must have.
Well, let's put it this way. It was an education.
Yeah.
It was an education. And yeah, after that, and then what's so funny is at the end of the 70s, all these people were saying, let's play the blues. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, I ain't going to play blues with white people. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Doesn't
hit the same.
Huh?
It doesn't hit the same.
Well,
I mean, it can. But...
Well, Mother Blues, I was in that Mother Blues scene, and some of the guys that playing that knew that I still indulged in that. And the next thing you know is they all wanted to go and do blues. But that particular run from the 60s overflowing to the 70s, I think that run was gone.
Yeah, for sure.
So
you mentioned getting into session work. And as a music fan, I have seen live music. I've seen studio work. I've seen session players. And first of all, session players do not get enough love anywhere in the music business, and they should, 100%. But I want to talk about your kind of evolving from a live musician, which has never gone away for you. You've taken breaks from it for sure. But you kind of evolved into the session work. Was that more or less because of employment, like monetary reasons, or did you really enjoy the session?
Well, my big hero is Duane Allman.
Okay.
And he did all that stuff with Muscle Shoals.
Right.
He played on 31 records other than Allman Brother records. Mm-hmm.
So All Fame Studios, I believe, right?
Yeah, a lot of played with Aretha Franklin and you name it, he was playing on it. I remember I got to tune it, but Wesley Pruitt called me one day, and at the end of Chain of Food, the way he goes. Mm-hmm. And he heard that, and he goes, wait a minute. How did Craig play on Aretha Franklin records? And I didn't. That was Duane.
Yeah.
So, the gig was over. I don't have any original licks. I'm just playing Duane stuff, But
this is direct inspiration then.
Oh, God, big time.
Yeah.
Also,
did you enjoy session work?
I liked it.
It's very much like work, isn't it?
It is like work, but I was mainly playing session work, slide playing.
Yeah.
So I was digging it, playing slide on stuff.
So that's stuff you're not typically able to do live, right? For whatever reason.
I wanted to be in a big band like the Brother Band, but I never got to be.
Right.
So I played slide with Raising Cane, and I played slide with Joe City, but not to where I would get to play. Not everybody can be lucky enough to play with the Allman Brothers.
Mm-hmm. Right.
There only can be one, sort of speak.
So at some point in time, so you basically put your first wife through college with music.
Yeah.
But at some point in time, you end up doing real work, right? You get away from music for some reason. So
I worked I drove bobtail and loaded it full of records. Like back then in Dallas, all the major record distributors were out of Dallas.
Right.
So I was loading bobtail after bobtail full of the heaviest things. National Geographic's got nothing on boxes of vinyl. And I had hair done in my butt, and all the other guys were looking at me like, you ain't from around here. But I did it. But what happened was I was making good money, but then I would jam with records. And I remember I sat down one time after I'd been doing it for a while, and man, you know, I couldn't even jam with the Allman Brothers band. I said, that's it, I'll quit. So I went over to Peaches Records and Tapes and got a classical buying gig because I knew a lot about classical music.
So the well just dried up for whatever reason?
I quit. It was a clique.
Yeah.
You know, it's just like Duane said, it was a clique, man.
Yeah.
He couldn't handle the clique. He said that everybody would go and buy a Cadillac, and then the other guys would buy a Cadillac, and then they switch it to another car, and they all buy another car. But those guys didn't have, you know, any yearning to other what they were doing. You know, I just learned recently that when Duane left the Almond Joys and Greg was still under contract, he set up a pup pen in front of Muscle Shoals and just stayed there until he got his chance. Now that's balls.
Yeah, big time.
You know, I mean, it's like the latest sessions. Eric Clapton saw the Allman Brothers play, invited Duane to the studio, and Duane shows up with 2 guitars and an amp. You know, that's, you know, I don't care what you think, you know.
Again, balls.
That is balls. And then the brother band would have never come around if he wasn't playing these sessions. That was feeding everybody back, you know.
Absolutely. Yeah. I often wonder if some of those folks from back then knew the effect they were having on future generations of musicians.
I don't know, man.
You know,
Duane passed away 54 years ago yesterday.
Yeah.
And he was only 24.
Yeah.
And you talk about what if he lived a couple of years longer, you know.
Talking about fast forward, man. He did a lot in a short amount of time.
Yeah, but he was driven and he had a good business sense. I think he had a good business sense on his head.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know. I never got to meet him. I asked a bunch of questions to his brother when I turned down the gig playing with him, you know.
How do you turn that down?
Well, you go to the gig to talk to him. His manager was wanting me because I played slide. The guy that was playing the second guitar was their guitar roadie. And he's playing, and they've got, who was the other? The 2 brothers, I forget the 2 brothers' names, that were playing with Greg and the Greg Allman group. And basically, I hung out with Stevie that day because he opened. And then when Greg got up there and played, I saw more cocaine go down on that organ. And so we had to talk. We talked at the Gore Ballroom in the bathroom. And I said, man, I don't want to get a tattoo and I don't want to do cocaine. And he goes, he relieved. He just went, oh, great. That's good, man. And I said,
Was it the Toller brothers?
Yeah. The Toller brothers. Frank and
It's Dan and David.
Dan and David?
Yeah.
Well, Toller. Well, anyway, I don't remember. I just saw him playing. And what was so interesting is he thought the conversation was over. We spent the next 15, 20 minutes of me going, no, you're not getting out that easy. And he goes, what? And I go, man, did Duane really have a dream where Hendrix showed him to play Little Martha with drumsticks on a parking meter? And Craig goes, no, man, that's about his old lady. You know, and then I go, does Les Dudek have that Les Paul, that gold top? You know, everybody says that Les Dudek has Duane's gold top. No, man, his old lady has that too.
Wow.
So, you know, but you have to understand.
So you're just an old school fact checker.
Well, I did, yeah. And then what was so funny, later I played on some sessions for him. And there's a couple, Dave is pulling them out, but there's a couple of tunes, Can't Be Satisfied and Rock Me Baby, with me playing on the I'm No Angel sessions the producer had me come in and play slide on some stuff, but I'm trying to remember exactly what went down. Oh, then Greg played on an album that I went to Chicago to play with Lefty Diz.
Mm-hmm.
And I was in the studio. And there was Hubert Sumlin was there, Spanky McFarlane, Noel Reddy, all these people. This guy had got all these people of merit.
Yeah. Heavy hitters.
And put an album out.
Yeah.
Well, I'd done, in between Raising Cain and Joe City, I did a solo album called Endangered Species. Yeah. And what was so funny, I was dating Andrea, my wife now, about 85. I get a copy of the record cassette for him. I'm sitting having dinner with her for the first time in her apartment. And next thing I know, it sounds like they're playing Ain't My Cross to Bear with Greg singing it, right?
Yeah, yep.
But then when they did the stop, instead of saying Ain't My Cross to Bear, he goes, the original, Cut the Bleed, which was a tune off of Endangered Species.
Yep.
So I called up his manager and said, what's going on? And Greg was there. And he goes, Greg's upset because you stole his hook off of original. And I hear Greg Allman in the background. I only steal from the best, Greg. That's it. That was all I got.
So wait a minute. So they were accusing you of stealing, but Greg was
they stole mine.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah. So,
no, they did.
So Greg basically sampled your stuff. Yeah.
And then I found out through Planet Dallas Publishing that I had no legal ramification over using it. Yeah. But I got to meet.
But you have this great story now about your wife now.
Yeah.
You know?
Oh, yeah. It was she didn't understand.
Yeah.
Because I was taking my first break from music when I met her. I'd been doing it for so long, I was taking time off. And she didn't understand. She didn't understand that at all. You know, I said I was a musician, but she had no clue.
Yeah.
You know, I could have been, I could be some guy says, I'm a musician and played my little cassette player.
Right.
And yeah, that's me. Mm-hmm. That kind of stuff.
So, man, lots of stuff that Craig is leading up for me. I have obviously have lots of notes on you, and it's like you're reading my notes instead of me. So. All right, so you mentioned your father earlier, your biological father, and you found out that he existed essentially at 55 years old, right?
No, 27.
Or that's when you found him.
I did the test.
Yeah.
I did. Yeah. I went in to get the DNA test done at 55.
Right.
He went into Dallas, and I went into Tyler, and it was funny. I got there, and there's this 20-something-year-old nurse goes, okay, you're here for the DNA test? I go, yes, ma'am. And she goes, so you're the father? And I go, no, I'm the child. I've been saving my money.
Yeah.
Because I didn't really get the DNA for sure. And there's no way to know for sure. I lived a lie for 27 years, and I got to know him, and he was a great musician, and we did lots of things together, but there was always that nagging, maybe this is another lie.
Yeah, what if?
What if?
Yeah.
And
so the obvious question there is, 27, you're essentially you met your father around that time, is that right? Your biological
I was
father?
told by my grandmother that Tom Wallace was not my father.
Okay.
And then she told me a name. And then I played clubs for the next 2 years, looking at people like, are you my father? Are you my father? And I'd ask questions about him.
So was the DNA test a way to stop those feelings of wonder when you're out?
What happened was it was never a good time to bring up the DNA test.
Yeah.
And Sammy was a lot like Willie Nelson, just like that.
Yeah.
Don't start it and it won't stay. that kind of guy.
Yeah.
But some things happened that made me go, I could be living another life. So I told him how I felt, and we got it done. And then I just embraced it.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know how to explain it. I talk to people all the time that have gone through this, and I tell them straight up, I said, if you're meeting a biological parent or child, first thing you do, you keep your boundaries, you meet up at a post office, you swap, put it in the mail, and you wait for what happens, because it may be a lie.
It's very cool that he was open enough to understand.
Well, finally he was, but he didn't really know. He was treating me like we looked a lot alike.
Right.
But he was being very cool about it. But even until I did it, I don't think he truly knew for sure. Yeah. But he treated me like it was. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But
so he knew for sure, but didn't know for sure.
I asked him, why didn't you pursue me? You know, when you got back from the Navy.
Yeah.
And he was told that my mother hung around with a lot of men friends.
Mm-hmm.
So, and she wouldn't have anything to do with it. My grandparents went over to see me, and she denied access. And like I said, she broke down at the wedding and said it's not his. So, you know what I mean? It was just like, and it was like everybody was in shock. And I think my grandfather used to say things to me, but you talk about full circles.
Mm-hmm.
My grandfather, his mother was a Houston. She was engaged to be married to an Irish blacksmith.
Okay.
He was kicked in the head and killed. So what happens? She gives these people called the Heaths to raise him. And they lived on the same block. She married a Dillman, and he played with his half-brother, but they didn't know anything about it. And he never told me the story. It was pieced together after the fact.
Mm.
But he used to play a lot of music, like he would record the Grand Ole Opry or play me like Billy Budd, the musical.
Yeah.
On his reel-to-reel. He traveled all over the world. He was a seed.
It's another massive influence on you.
Oh, big time, because everything was possible.
Yeah.
He didn't say, quit sucking your thumb, Craig, and all that. He just like, I felt like if I wanted to be a veterinarian,
acceptance,
I would have been
right.
Oh, total acceptance and love.
Yeah.
And that's in the particular landscape that I was in.
That sounds like that could have been your light we talked about earlier.
Oh, yeah.
In the darkness.
Oh, it was only light. But now, like, for instance, Girl from the North Country on the record. I wrote it because Gillen did it, but I wrote the arrangement. And if you listen to it, it sounds like you're in a car going down the highway, long trip.
Yeah.
And
we talked about ethereal earlier, very much so.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And he had a woman that he was seeing. And she came into my life and I got to know it, but it was one of those unrequited loves. And that's what that song is about, And everybody goes, well, you're not playing blues right now. It's like, that's a blues, man.
Yeah.
My old time used to be,
Yep. Definitely want to talk about that evolution about genre here in a little while. But,
okay.
Not quite yet. At some point in time, all of us as human beings have to learn about forgiveness. If we don't, then we're not doing it right. Whether you're spiritual, religious, whatever it is. And at some point in time for you in your life, you really had a really close relationship with learning forgiveness.
Well, I'm still working on it every day.
Yeah, of course.
Well, I talked to some friends to to find out forgiveness. When I did my first inductee with you call him medicine man, but he was a Wakong Wichashi and named Bearhawk. And at the end of it, all said and done, he told me something that right before I turned 40, he told me, how do you get to compassion? And I told him what I thought about how to get to compassion. And he says, get compassion through forgiveness. How do you get to forgiveness? And I told him what I thought. And he says, you get to forgiveness when you start being grateful for the worst things that ever happened to you in your life. And from there on, it was like, so I'm still working on forgiveness, but I was told that by a friend that start on yourself, then everybody else will be easy.
Mm-hmm.
But
it's funny. My next question was, what was easier for you, forgiving your father or forgiving yourself? So you just answered that.
I didn't get mad at Sammy. He was a victim of circumstance. I've forgiven. I do my prayers every day for about an hour after I get the dogs out the door. But I light my sage and I say my prayers and I listen to sacred songs. And in the sacred songs, there's one about forgiving yourself and others. Mm-hmm. And I go through that and I'm slowly getting, I'm not angry anymore because all these worst things that happened to me led me to forgiveness, and forgiveness will lead me to compassion, to be a better, compassionate person. So I can't really complain anymore.
Yeah. It's not a perfect science, right?
I don't know what it is, man. I think it's a relationship for me, it's just a relationship between the great mystery.
Yeah.
It's not a God or anything like that. It's just, you don't know.
Yeah.
And guess what? I don't know either. Mm-hmm. But there's a mystery out there.
This is incredible stuff, man. I appreciate this so much. I want to talk about your beautiful wife, Andrea.
Well, is she here?
She went to knit. She's
going to go knit. She'll see it later, Craig.
Okay.
So first of all, she's a teacher, just retired, I believe.
Well, she was home with the kids.
Yeah.
I supported when Andrea got pregnant with our daughter, Hagen. And she went back to work for about 4 weeks. We had a one-on-one sitter, but she was miserable. Mm-hmm. And then we lost the one-on-one center. And we went and got a daycare that was more expensive than most. But Andrea would go to work, come home with Haley and try to make everything up. And then on the weekends, she tried to make everything up too. So I wrote an immaculation proclamation. What I did is I relieved her of all duties except to raise the kids. And she was at home until they became teenagers. Then she took a part-time job. And then when we came down here, she already had 2 degrees. And she got a teaching license. And they said she was a master teacher the first year that she started, but she did that 16 years. And I don't even know that world. She leaves at 6:30 in the morning, comes home about 5:30, 6. And she's been doing that for a long time.
I've read a lot about you and a lot of the things that you have to say. It's just, you can tell the love story that you have.
Oh, we have her. Especially how it started. It's so funny. Because I was visiting.
Well, it started with a stolen song.
Really?
Well, that's what you told me. Greg Allman stole your song.
No, I was eating with her when the original Cut to Bleed was about how everybody has a better story bragging right.
Yeah.
Sort of like Monty Python. My father killed us every morning and we worked for 12 hours and then he put us in a matchbox.
Yep.
And then he killed us every morning, But that's nothing. I'll tell you, hardship, that kind of thing. But I was looking for a book on coiena squatsi, which is a Hopi term for meaning life is in turmoil, crazy life. And I went to this bookstore, Doubleday, and she was there. But I went to see a bass player friend of mine, and he said, and she was acting sort of goofy. After she waited on me, she was a little bit animated. And so it's so funny because Peter goes, I go, who is that? And he goes, Andrea. And he goes, she's not seeing anybody. You should ask her out. And I said, and then she left. And I followed her all the way down North Park, just right at the doors where she goes into the parking lot, right? And then I used this line, verbatim. I said, excuse me, I know you only reject me in the end, but would you like to go out with me? And she did.
Wow.
And then she made me wait 2 weeks because she was thinking too much of me. But I will say that we have,
So she proved you wrong.
Oh, well.
She didn't reject you in the end.
No, she hasn't rejected me yet. Although she watches a lot of true crime, and I think she's going to.
She knows how to do it legally, though, right?
Right. She'll know how to. I remember one time I used to tell Heather that I know, we used to watch the true crime together, and I go, please don't give me slow doses of antifreeze for 2 months and kill me,
I've seen that one.
One time. and Heather and me were coming back from a gig, and my car was parked at her place, and she took a different turn, right, than she ever does to her place in Garden Valley where she lived at the time. And I go, oh, so this is where you and Andrea have it figured out to kill me. And she goes, damn it, Craig, you screwed it up. Damn, we'll quit.
That antifreeze story, my wife used to say, look, you don't like spice. All your food is bland as hell. You'll know if I put antifreeze in your shit. I was like, yeah, okay.
Yeah, but there's so many other more ways.
Yeah, I know. We just get that one covered, right?
Well.
Yeah. That's the ultimate trust, though. Like, they know they can kill you legally without you ever even realize what's happening.
Yeah, they can do. Well, it's knowing about my childhood and everything. Now you understand. In my phone, it says Andrea is home.
Yeah.
I'd like, that movie Elizabethtown?
Mm-hmm.
I want to live in Andreatown. So, although I'm sure she will tell you how hard I am to live with, but,
Aren't we all, though?
We all are. Mm. But the one thing about, I tell people all the time when they ask new couples, I go, man, I have a good marriage. 38 years.
Wow.
40 years together. Would you like to know the secret?
Absolutely.
And he said, and they say, what? I said, you have the right to bitch, moan, discuss any subject as long as you want, as long as you realize in the end you were wrong.
That's right.
Yep. And then, but one time I was spiritually, emotionally, logically right. And I said, I'm all these things, I'm right.
You're still wrong.
Yeah, you know what she said?
What?
You can be right or you want to be in a relationship. So, surrender.
Yep, that's right. Surrender.
That's
the secret.
I think.
Sorry.
She knows what I'm talking about.
So, at some point you end up in East Texas.
Mm.
And that's a little bit different musically, right?
Well, let's put it this way. The first time I played a gig in East Texas, I called a friend of mine up. He does a little bit of rock and roll, a little country, a little jazz. And I said, you need to come out here and play. And he said, why? I said, because you be king. Right now, they're looking at me like, you just play that blues because you can't play country boy.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that attitude. But the reason that I started playing.
I'll keep it real. It just sounded like you described Wesley Pruitt to me.
Who?
Well, you said I knew a guy that played a little bit of country, a little bit of rock.
No, it was a guy named Jim Chapman.
Okay.
In Dallas.
Yeah.
I
figured it wasn't Wesley, but it definitely describes him for sure.
Well, what happened with that whole thing about playing, the reason I started playing is Bugs passed.
Mm-hmm.
And the night that he passed, it was raining, and I collected some rainwater from that night. And the next day, I called Brooks Drummel. And I've been doing some gigs with Danny Holland and other people, but I didn't own a guitar. Wow. And I had a $100 Ibanez acoustic that didn't play too well. But anyway, to make a long story short, I called him up and said, can I borrow your guitar? The hole was too big again. Mm-hmm. I need to play. And then I went and played Friday and Saturday there in the afternoon. And then Brooks said, would you like to play every Saturday from 3 to 6? I said, sure. And that's when I started doing it at the Forge. Mm-hmm. And then I wanted to play a little bit more. So I said, can I please, Wednesday night, I'll even do an open mic, just so I can play a few numbers before I get people up.
Right.
And so that's why I did it all that time.
There was a transition during that time, essentially, from like a blues style to more folky kind of music too, right?
No, I was playing straight ahead blues. Yeah. I was playing Jimi Hendrix.
Okay.
Blues, slide stuff. I was playing Robert Johnson. There's a few tunes that I used to do, like Hurt or something like that, different. But I always I'm real picky about material.
Yeah.
I ain't gonna sit there. The most typical song, I did a lot of Muddy Waters. I did whatever I felt. I did everything from Wind Cries Mary to Castles Made of Sand on the acoustic. And then I started getting gigs with people like Heather and other people. And my slide playing once again came to a front.
So it's kind of been your signature.
Yeah, it really was. But
was that okay with you?
Hell, I wanted to be the best slide player I could be. I never met anybody that says, I'm starting guitar, and they go, well, what's your ambition? I want to be the worst guitar player ever. I want to be like the most terrible slide player in the world. Yeah. And I kept waiting for a hero, and man, there wasn't any heroes to listen to since Wayne passed. And then now we got Derek Trucks, and it's like, oh my God, wow.
And somebody told me once, not too long ago, be careful what you're good at, because it might be something you hate. So
really?
Yeah. Essentially, they talk about it like it's a song, though. Like if you write a song and you don't like the song, but maybe your publisher does, or maybe your agent does, or your manager, or your record label, they all love the song, but you don't love the song. You don't identify with the song, but you relent, you put the song out there. Now it's a #1 hit. Now you're going to be playing that song the rest of your days, every single night, as your encore or whatever. Just be careful what you're good at, because it might be something you hate.
Yeah, it could be. I could see people like the Garden Party.
Yeah.
Happening. Mm-hmm. Throwing out one-hit wonders. I played in front of a lot of them in Joe City. We played every night, different places, and we were doing all the one-hit wonders, people. Head Ace, Artie Speedwagons, White Twilly, you name it. We were out there touring with them. Mm-hmm. And, I saw a lot of that, but I don't know. I think sometimes the reason that you might hate it is because it's true.
Yeah.
Yep. It's sort of like they say that people if you don't like somebody that you're talking to, it's probably because they're reflecting back yourself more than you want to.
It's almost like an accusation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't know about that.
It's definitely, I love that. It's the reason why is because it's true. I never thought of it that way.
Oh, it is true.
Yeah, that's great. Bugs Henderson, man. Unfortunately, I got to Texas too late, or perhaps I got into the music industry or the music scene too late to have met Bugs. But man, his granddaughter's fabulous. Isn't
she is incredible.
Golly, that girl can play
and sing.
Yes,
sing like. But I knew Bugs when I was 16.
Yeah,
sneaking in the clubs, and at the end of everything for him, we were talking on the phone quite more often. Bugs is a trip. I mean, I could say something about. He always let's just put it this way. Anybody that knew Bugs, he left answer machine messages that were, well, let's put it this way, risque.
I've heard a few voicemails. Let's just put it that way.
Really?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, the ones I can't repeat.
Yep.
Because even if I repeat, they're not that bad. But
Unkle Dallas? Did you ever meet Uncle Dallas Greenhorn?
no.
Yeah, he was a drummer from East Texas.
You talking about Uncle John Turner?
No, Uncle Dallas.
Oh, I knew Uncle
This
John.
guy right here.
Oh, really? Uncle Dallas.
So he mentored like the Abbott brothers and Little Texas. And
really?
He lived out in, goodness, I want to say Kilgore area. He lived out in the boons. But yeah, there's not too many musicians in this area that don't have a voicemail from Uncle Dallas still on their phone.
Well, I'm jealous.
Myself included.
Well,
yeah,
man.
Those stories are always something else. Man, I'll tell you the truth, man. Every time I get a new phone, I don't leave the cell phone office until I can physically play that voicemail
I'm the same way.
On the new phone. I'm not walking out until it plays on the new phone.
I've been with Verizon for 25 years, and they only give you 20 voicemails.
Yeah.
And 15 of them were people that crossed over.
Yeah.
And I've kept them.
Yeah.
And I know I should download them.
You should. Just to be safe.
But I don't know. Technology and me are...
Well, sometimes you can lose those things without even realizing they're lost, and then you go to search for it later and you realize it's lost. You don't know when it got lost, so you can't fix it anymore.
Well, let's put it this way. Here's my view about technology. Everybody is on their tricycle and it's got wings, okay? And they're going very, very fast, right?
Way too fast.
They just haven't noticed that they fell off the cliff 2 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
They, the Mayans, they're going, we're doing great.
Yeah. You look down, right?
Right. So everybody needs their phone and all the stuff it provides, but the minute that they have to write one line of code to check their Facebook, everybody's just going to be like, well, I can't get on. I can't Google anything because I don't know how to get on.
I think the thing that gets me about technology is the entitlement. It's like everybody thinks like it's a God-given right to have a Facebook or an Instagram or internet and anything and everybody, when you lose it, you don't know what to do with yourself.
Well, I only get on 30 minutes a day, and I only get on every day for one reason. All I do is I'm gotten to tendency to post memories.
Mm-hmm. Oh, Dark 30 is when you're on too. I know when you're on.
Yeah. And all I do right now is I only get on there for one reason, and that's just to go, good morning, it's a good day.
Yep. Reminders.
That's it.
Yep.
Man,
encouragement is so important. I try to be the same way. I fail at it so much, but I appreciate the reminder.
Well, I've been taught by some of the best.
Yeah.
And hanging out with certain people, you start to get the vibe because, it's sort of like for instance, in the last 3.5 years, this nuclear type of apathy where it is what it is. And I don't know, I don't have any answers for it.
Mm-hmm.
But I do have one answer, and that is for me to walk my day forward and be as compassionate to people as I meet them, as see them, do everything I can as me.
Yeah.
And hopefully it'll all catch on.
One of my reminders is right here on my arm. You may not get to see it, but this is my logo. And it just says, "Love is contagious."
Oh, it is.
Yeah. And so I try to, that's kind of a daily reminder for myself.
Well, if I had a tattoo, which I won't give, because both my father and my dad had them, and my son Jared is 41 and he's covered.
Yeah.
But mine would say, "Nothing stands a chance against our love or our prayers."
Nice.
You know, but that's just me.
It's in your mind though, so you have that reminder.
Well, yeah, but the mind is, like I was talking to Andrew, you know, the mind is always playing.
Yeah.
And it just loves to just play.
Yeah.
You know?
It messes with you. So we were talking off air. This is going to be kind of funny because it's kind of ironic in a way, talking about name dropping.
Right.
And I'm going to drop a name, Ray Wylie Hubbard.
Right.
Tell us about that one.
Well, we were doing a song circle one night. And I feel if I talk about people, I'm not name dropping, I'm talking about my wife.
That's right.
But some people say, "Well, you're name dropping." But I used to feel weird about saying stuff like that. But then I was doing a songwriter circle at Blue Cat Blues with Ray Wylie and 2 other people. And somebody mentioned name droppers. And Ray just stood, you know, sort of stood in his seat and he goes, "Name droppers. I hate name droppers. I know him. I know that guy. Oh, I've known him a long time. He's my best friend. I just hate." And then he goes, "I was talking to Willie about it just the other day."
Oh, man. If you're not following Ray Wylie Hubbard out there, first of all, what are you doing with your life? You need to get that done. But man, is he a fun follow on social media.
I met him when I was playing that session with Alex Moore. That's the first time I met Ray.
Yeah.
And I didn't know, if you learn about Bugs, you'll learn about the big controversy between him and John Nitzinger.
Yeah.
Okay? So that's a history lesson. I didn't know. I knew Bugs. And when I was doing this session, I was supposed to play dobro on a country blues tune. And they brought in Bugs. Bugs was here to my left. Nitzinger was here to my right.
Wow.
And they were told to play rhythm and for me to take the ride.
Wow.
Okay. Well, no matter what happened, we start the tune. I don't know how Bugs did it, but he was actually playing the guitar in such a way where he was in sync, but he was making John sound like he was off.
Yeah.
And he was just doing it. And I just I just felt the vibe. And I went into the singing booth and I just met Ray, and I went up to Ray, who was nursing a toothache. And I go, "Ray, is it me? I mean, I'm the new kid on the block. Is all that angst in there about me?" And he goes, "Craig, can't you feel the love?"
So it was a history lesson you just didn't know about yet.
Oh, yeah. I didn't know anything about it. And when I did learn about it, you know, it's
So we talked a little bit earlier about not looking at your audience, and I want to. For me, I'm not a performer. I sing, I dabble. You know, I've done karaoke, things like that. I can't sing with my eyes closed. It feels awkward to me. I'm just curious. What's the why? Why do you do that, or not do that?
When I first started playing electric guitar out in clubs and stuff like that, I tried to look out at the audience, but
Was it just distracting?
It just totally distracts me.
Yeah.
And the thing is, I rarely, when I'm comfortable in playing, I rarely look at what I'm playing. And I just feel it. You know, I let it come on to me.
Yeah.
I feel like a musician, this is what I'm shooting for. And that is, if you're going to learn an instrument, you got to learn the mechanics first. You know, here's an A major chord. Put your fingers this way, tune the guitar, play it this way. Then you play without thinking about it. You just go, you don't even think E major chord, you just plumb.
Yeah.
But then, if you're lucky, you become an instrument and you are played. Yeah. And when that's the whole key of that. It's not like I'm not aware of all the people in the room, because I'm very aware of stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And there's stuff that you're not aware of. I remember one time I was playing the Forge on Saturday, and there were these two people, and they were both in overalls. It was a man and a woman, and they had to been in their late 60s. And I look up, and the woman is from the 50s, and she still wears a beehive, you know, the big up there.
Yep.
And they're looking at me like that poster of Mom, Paul, you know, the whoever that is, that I forget his name, but you know, Country Life, where he's holding the pork chip, you know.
Yeah, I know the
Rockefeller
you're talking about.
It's Rockefeller.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, these two people, I quit playing. I look up, and there they are, right? And they're sort of looking at me, but there's no emotion. There's no nothing.
Yeah.
And once again, I'm thinking, you just play that blues stuff because you can't play country. And then I get up and I start walking back to get my coffee. And the lady looks up at me and goes, I just love the blues. And I go, I don't have a clue what anybody's thinking. Why would I start now?
That's amazing. Yeah, it makes sense. It's hard. I mean, reading the room, you can be wrong.
Oh, you can. Yeah. Well, that's a whole nother conversation, you know.
Yeah. So we got Craig Wallace here, and Craig is going to play another song for us.
I am?
Yeah, this is also on the record, right? Just like Me and You? Is this a new one?
Yeah.
It's
not on the album.
It's not on the album.
No, matter of fact, I played it first time I played it was for Brad Hauser's, and Edie Brickell was asking me,
Wait, you know Edie Brickell, you're name dropping, and you're waiting until an hour and 20 minutes into
I knew him when Brad basically started the Bubbas.
Yeah.
And he had a band with Eric Presswood on guitar, and then they brought in Edie, and then Kenny Withrow joined on. So I've known them since the beginning. They put me on shows. Back in my day when I was doing my original thing, lots of people put each other. Eric Johnson put me on a lot of shows.
Yeah.
Edie Brickell wasn't Edie Brickell. It was just a New Bohemian.
Yeah.
And they were sort of interesting because they'd come out and put carpets or rugs down and light incense on stage, and they did their thing. But then they got signed and they made a hit, and the Geffen Records made them say Edie Brickell and New Bohemian.
God, Lee, this is so good, man. I love them so much. Huge fan of the New
Really?
Bohemians. Oh my gosh, yes, in the 80s and 90s. Oh man. And then I found out later she was married to Paul Simon. And I was like, oh my God, what? Like Simon and Garfunkel, like my favorite artists ever.
Yeah. Well, you know, the thing, if you met Edie back in the day,
I might not be here, to be fair, if that would have happened.
What do you mean?
I'd probably.
Oh, God. Edie drove an old pickup truck and had a cat named Mama Kitty. I think we got one of Mama Kitty's cats at one time. But, you know, these small towns that don't even have a zip code,
You mean the ones that have Dollar Generals now?
Well, yeah, I guess that's what there's now. But they always had that family food store.
Yeah.
And I always thought that Edie was so laid back. She could have worked there and been happy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Golly.
And I knew that she was. The last thing she told me after she broke up the band, coming back from the Dylan tour, they were giving her a hard time, and I called her up and said, Edie, I see that they're giving you a hard time in the press. And she goes, it really hurts my feelings. And I go, Edie, don't worry about them. I'll tell you what, if you want to know what life is really about, come over and babysit my kids. And she goes, I might just have me some babies. And that was the last thing she said to me before she went up and, I'll give you a little insight. Apparently, she didn't reveal this to the band until later. But the reason she pretty much broke up the band was because she did want to go up and spend time with Paul and maybe have babies.
Man, great stuff. I appreciate that story, man. I was a huge New Bohemian fan. And anyway, yeah, we're gonna play. We're gonna show you just like me and you by Craig Wallace. Y'all check it out.
Last night and what I saw. Last night and what I saw. Last night and what I saw. Well, it looked like me and you. What it was the stars. What it was the stars. What it was the star, and it looked like me and you. So far and up so high, so far and up so high, so far and up so high, and it looked like me and you. Said a prayer, kiss the sky. Said a prayer, kiss the sky. Said a prayer, kiss the sky. And it looked like me and you. Looks like me and you.
All right, so we are back, and obviously we've been talking about doing this interview for a while.
Right.
And then your record was due to come out, and so we kind of postponed until the record would come out. And guys, the record is right here. It's called Water Bears No Scars. I hope you guys will pick up a copy, stream it everywhere. Pick up a copy and stream it.
And be on the lookout.
This is
a friend called me yesterday.
This is a new old one.
A friend called me yesterday, blew my mind. I did this record in 2006, and I gave him a copy, and a year later he listened to it and he goes, "That's an amazing record."
Mm-hmm.
And I said, "Really?" And he goes, "Yeah, it's amazing." And it's an electric guitar record.
Yeah.
And I go, "Oh, wow." And he goes, "You should re-release that." So as of yesterday, I decided that I would re-release this.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm going to put it on my website, and it's going to be available. Not to plug it, but to say, isn't it weird how somebody could call you up out of
And
the blue
inspire you, yeah.
and go,
Yeah.
that was great.
You never know who's listening, Craig.
Well, I hope not,
Mm-hmm.
because
Well, this is going to be exciting now because Craig has given us 2 copies that we're going to give away. So as part of this episode, I don't know how we're going to do it yet, but you guys are going to need to follow along with his social media. You're going to have to check out his website. We're going to have we'll figure out some way to make sure both of these get sent out to valuable homes or good forever homes. But tell us about the inspiration behind the record.
well, it's real simple. I was playing all the time, like 8 hours a day. And Stephen Pridmore called me up and said, you need to be heard. And I said, okay. And he said, I'm going to show up with a portable recorder. So we spent 2 days in the Red Barn.
Mm-hmm.
Then Dave Parks, who was out with Eric for a minimal 10 years as an engineer, mixing engineer, did all the demos for the first 3 records.
Mm-hmm.
Matter of fact, they couldn't even produce some of them, and they give him credit on like Iva Miakan, because especially high randoms, they never were able to duplicate that stereo effect on some of the solos. And I remember when he was doing that, they did it on Riverside Studios. They were doing a demo for Warner Brothers after the first record. And I remember Thanksgiving Day, I get a call and it's Day. I go, what are you doing? He goes, I'm in the studio. I've been in the studio for 8 hours now.
You're supposed to be there.
And I go, really? He goes, yeah, I've been in the studio for 8 hours. And I said, well, what are you doing in the studio? Well, Eric is trying to punch this one note in for a solo. And I go, and it's been taking 8 hours. He goes, well, he hadn't liked it yet.
Mm-hmm.
So what I'm trying to say is he was with him back in the days when, Eric would take the time, but Eric's very meticulous about what he does.
I have a fan question for you here in a minute.
Okay.
That's about Eric Johnson. So this is a little bit different. There's not much blues in this record.
No.
I'd love to hear the evolution from what you're known for, what you've always kind of...
I just dropped, during COVID, I think it was during COVID, I figured 50 years of playing guitar was enough. And so I dropped it. Of course, some of those decisions may have been because of the cancer that I was dealing with.
Right.
But when I did pick it up a year and a half later, I didn't think I was ever going to pick it up. But then when I picked it up, I had yet to play any blues or Hendrix or anything. I just started playing. And I started playing electric guitar too. As a matter of fact, instead of playing Stratocaster, I'd move over to Tellys. I'm bent Telly guy now.
Mm-hmm.
But I always wanted to do in the 90s, I always wanted to do a record called Acoustiphonics, which would have been just acoustic music like this.
It's beautiful.
But I never did get to do it. So I did it. And then Dave Parks and me spent 2 years mixing it. And then even the song selection took a long time to get just right. And the one thing I like about it is that there's a certain amount of humor in everything, I was just telling Dave today that a lot of people only make money on the merchandise. So I said, I'm going to have T-shirts made, and it's going to have the album on the front, right? But on the back, it's going to say, over 3 CDs sold.
Over, so it'd be like 4.
Over 3, maybe 4.
Maybe 5.
But
where's the shirt? Come on, we gotta get this shirt.
I gotta get it going because it would,
Maybe sell more shirts than records, maybe.
I don't know. From what I hear about these young people having to make it, they're not making it off of.
It's completely backwards now. Yeah, for sure.
Now they have to tour to sell merchandise, and
Yep.
that's how they're existing.
Well, I highly recommend the album. I wanted to tell you, I think this would be a compliment to you. My wife has been writing a fantasy novel for a lot of years, since I've known her. We've been together since 2015, so almost 10 years that she's been writing this novel. And her inspiration and her vibe is very musical. So when she's in her creative place, then she knows when she wants to write. She needs music to get her into a certain place. And so I always know when she's writing now because I hear your music coming from my room.
Oh, really?
So she's been using your
That's
record
great.
to vibe to get into her. She calls it playing with my imaginary friends.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, tell her my heart is smiling.
I will sure do that.
That's the kind of stuff that we don't tell people we want to hear, but we need to hear.
Yeah, and that's why there's no stable definition of success.
Well,
There's no
I'll tell you,
singular. That's the word I'm looking for.
Remember I said on your post, the thing that got me through when I was doing originals and playing lots of tours was thrive on rejection until success is a reality. Because I got to the point where I was no longer going to beat my head against the business. I was just going to stand there, and when the door opened, I'd walk through calmly, right? But I know a lot of people that are quote unquote big, and all I've noticed is it's like a runaway mine train, man. And they're doing very well just to hang on.
Yeah.
They don't have any control. It's just going. And all these people that say, well, like Edie asking me, are those songs recorded? I said, well, one of them's fixed to come out on the record, The River. And I said, and then the other one, I haven't recorded. She goes, why not? And I'm like, because I just wrote it 2 months ago. And she's like, okay, but at least she was nice enough to ask me about the tunes. She didn't have
that alone could be encouraging enough, just somebody asking.
Yeah.
Well, let me ask you this fan question. This comes from Tracy Killebrew. And
I know Tracy.
Yeah, they want to know when
his nickname is Crazy.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Well, this is not a crazy question, I don't.
Okay.
He wants to know when you were opening for Eric Johnson in Dallas. Were you the one that chose the venue for sound?
Chose the venue for sound?
Yeah.
And lights.
Yeah.
Sound and lights.
Okay. I don't know
one of the things that was really important what I did. When I started doing original music, I went to all the venues and thought about where I wanted to be seen, doing shows. Right? Not clubs, not 3 hours a night, but an hour, maybe an hour 15, hour 20 minutes, right?
Yeah.
And I've told every guy, don't just take any gigs. Do the gigs that you want to be seen at, that you think the audience would be receptive, but also, where do you want to be seen?
Be selective.
And everybody's going, well, I'm getting 5 a night, playing down here. It's like the Greenville Arm Bar and Grill. They could never have me play there because they offered me stupid money for a Monday night, right? But guess what? They didn't have a cover charge. And everybody that doesn't pay a trouble charge of at least $1, they just walk right back out. They don't have any commitment to you.
Right. That's a good point.
And how are you going to sell tickets to a show if they're not going to show any kind of commitment?
That's a good point.
But I mean, it's really, I don't know about this world and how it would be. I don't know. But I've told some people that I'm open to traveling, I'm open to all sorts of things. Preferably back in Japan would be really good.
So you have the new website, which I know you're very proud of. It's CraigWallaceMusic.com. I want you guys to make sure you check that out and spend some time there. There's a lot of archival stuff you've added in there that kind of chronicles your career, and a lot of live video as well, which, man, I've been on there a lot.
Really?
As you can probably tell just by the interview. I hope you can tell that.
Yeah, I can tell. A lot of hairstyles, isn't there?
Oh, yeah, for sure. This begs the question, first of all, how do you stay passionate after over 50 years doing this? And what's coming up for you? What are you looking forward to doing next?
Well, when I started playing when Bugs died, I tried to stress to everybody, I'm not trying to become anything. But what is my purpose? How do I stay passionate? Is I love playing. When I did start playing again, I felt like a 17-year-old again.
It fills the hole, right?
Oh, but I'm talking about like, I'm driving my wife crazy with the amount of time that I'm spending.
Mm-hmm.
And because I'm passionate already, I don't have to. It used to be discipline, but now I combine discipline and passion. I practice about 2 hours of nothing but finger exercises every day in the morning, so that when creativeness does strike, I'll be ready.
Mm-hmm.
But that's how I start my day. And sometimes you got to put in the work. You can't just, you know what? I think I didn't have your email, but man, I read something for the first time about 3 months ago where Duane Allman said, man, here's what you got to do. You get up in the morning, you brush your teeth, you practice. Then you have some breakfast and you practice. Then you practice some more. And then you have lunch and you get back to practicing and you practice it. The difference is, if you want this to be a hobby, you got to put in the time.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is a guy who's in his 20s talking about passion of just practicing, but he makes a point. I think Tchaikovsky wrote every day of his life, and only a fraction of them came into bloom. But he found that if he didn't do that every day, the discipline, but now it's not even discipline. Now it's like, and especially relearning electric guitar, because I haven't had an electric guitar in a while, and now I do, and it's fun.
Yeah.
It's fun.
It's so cool to see, you being so passionate about what you do still.
But you were asking purpose.
Yeah.
My purpose is simple. If the creator, I made a deal with the creator that if I'm asked to play, then I will play.
And like you said earlier, you are being played.
Oh, that's why I'm going to play. I get to be played. And, I did start up thinking, when I hung out with Taj Mahal told me that half of a good acoustic show is a rapport with the audience. Now, back in the other days, when I played the Forge, I just played. I went to the second song. I went to the third song. I didn't talk to the audience ever. Mm-hmm. And I thought this time I'll try to talk to the audience. Well, I tried. It didn't work out. You know what I mean?
Well, you're doing good today.
Well, that's because you're such a great host.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome.
I appreciate that. Guys, we're here with Craig Wallace. Just unbelievable stuff. This is why we do what we do. We hear phenomenal stories to live your life through your eyes and hear your existence. And I can't thank you enough for coming on today. And just a phenomenal guy, man.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, absolutely.
And dig yourself.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Hi, this is Mike Aiken. This is Amy Aiken.
Thanks for tuning in to the Boston Chris Show.